Amen. All right. Well, we're going to get stuck into tonight's discussion. It's going to be broken into two parts. The first part we'll be discussing all together, and then we're going to, for the majority of the night, break into a couple of groups. But we will start by going through some things all together. As our leadership group this year, we've been talking about two things that we're really making our goal in our leadership to help us be effective and fruitful. Can anyone remember what those two things are? You can call them out. Clarity and feedback. So I'm going to write on the TV here. So those on Zoom, please yell out if you can't see what we're writing, or if we position you better. They're muted, did you say?
Are they muted?
No, I don't think.
No, they're not muted.
Oh.
Thank you, there you go. Clarity and feedback. What I might even do is I'll pull this one a bit closer so you can...
Jesus, God, the Bible.
Also Jesus, God, the Bible. Thank you, Josh. Clarity and feedback. So these are two things that for us as leaders help us to be really effective and really fruitful in our leadership. So quick recap. Actually, can I just ask you that recording on my phone?
I think it was.
Yes.
Awesome. I'd hate to get through this and then find it's not. The example we gave last month is the example of the ship. So imagine that you, in your leadership, this is your leadership.
Do you want me to draw for you?
I would rather you not draw.
We'll call it the SS leader.
The SS leader.
Leadership.
The SSL. And so now imagine this, we think about your role as a leader at Breakthrough. So if you're leading a life group, if you're leading a grow team, if you're leading a church, whatever your leadership role or capacity is at Breakthrough, think of it as this is your ship, the SS leadership. And in your leadership, you have a goal over here. So we're going to draw it like a little island, and there's palm trees, and maybe it's Tracy Island, I don't know. And that the goal of your leadership is to get to that ship, to that island over there. The ship sets out with a goal. So you as a leader, as a life group leader, a grow team leader, whatever, you have goals that you want to achieve. That's why you're leading. You're leading people with the intention of going somewhere. Easy enough so far, or with that. The first thing you need in order to effectively achieve that is clarity. You need to actually know with clarity that this is the target. If you set out on your journey and you started aiming down here or up here, obviously you're not going to get to your destination.
But they look so pretty.
Yeah, they look so pretty. Look, there's palm trees down here and there's palm trees up here.
What's the difference between them?
Exactly, we could go, and so you could start on your journey up here or start on your journey down here. If you don't have clarity of knowing exactly where you're aiming, knowing what your goals are, as a leader you're destined to fail, or not necessarily fail, but be ineffective. Your leadership could be very busy doing lots of shit things. That's a bit rude, I didn't mean that. Doing lots of sailing things. And you could be going through the waters, doing all the sailing things, and get to the island and say, look, we made it, that's really good.
Are those the technical terms?
Yes, those are the technical. Yes, those are very technical terms. You could do all the sailing things, but if you don't have the clarity of actually knowing where it is you're aiming for, you'll wind up burning a lot of energy, doing a lot of things, and actually achieving a lot of things, but not necessarily achieving the right things or the most fruitful things. There's a lot of things we can do that are good things, but achieving the best things. Does that make sense? So our first thing we need as leaders is clarity. The second one, which we talked about last month, is feedback. Pardon me. And we talked about the concept of feedback, and this is just recapping, hence I'm doing talking. We talked about the concept of feedback, that on your leadership, even if you have perfect clarity that you know exactly where you're trying to go, on the journey there's going to be all sorts of different obstacles that you're going to have to overcome. There's some rocks here, or there's a storm here, or even as you're on your journey, you get greater clarity about exactly what point on the island you want to land. So all the way through your journey, even though at the beginning you might know we're aiming for that island, all the way through, you need to constantly be getting feedback to help refine that and give you greater clarity and get constantly make small adjustments to your course and greater clarity and refine and develop and improve. Does that make sense? And that's the concept of feedback. So we said this year as leaders, we really want to build a culture where as leaders, we're constantly working for two things. We're getting clarity about what is our end goal, what is the island that we're aiming for, and we have a culture of getting feedback. We talked a bit about that last week, how we have a culture where we say, help me grow. We have people above us, leaders above us, and we have a culture of saying, can you help me grow? Can you give me feedback? Can you give me feedback on this? Help me grow more. Help me to understand this more. Does that make sense? So we're sort of building this culture of these two things, clarity and feedback. That's just a little bit of a background overview of what we've been talking about. As I said, last week we focused on the feedback aspect. So this month I want to focus a bit on the clarity aspect. So to do that, we'll start off with a statement I want you guys to think about, and then we can discuss what this means. This is a statement that I've been thinking about. Clarity breeds synergy. I know, it sounds very leadery, doesn't it? It sounds like a nutshell. Can you, in your groups, take 2 minutes to discuss this phrase, clarity brings synergy, if we're going to talk about the concept of clarity, and say, what does that mean, and what does it actually mean to help us as leaders? Does that make sense? So if we say clarity breeds synergy, what do you think that means for us as a context of a group of leaders? Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, you can chat on the couch, the boys can chat here. Do you guys want to just chat together on Zoom? And come back and give your answer in 2 minutes. Go for it. Do I need to put on some background music?
Yeah.
So what Chris talked about that
So I'm trying to be irritated. Yeah.
Let me.
music protein, like media
What's-
protein.
So I'm just gonna say,
Awesome, where he says like this we gave the example or
Or
illustration of
I'll put some background music on.
thinking more
music
positivity.
team.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a bunch of division, but it's like because everyone's going to the same goal. It's like when you have
Are you trying to talk to us,
where
Kate?
you're going,
No, I was saying, are
you
we
can work together.
hearing me
you
talking
know
about
where the other
because
person's
I didn't know if
going.
we
Yeah,
were
I know.
in
I know. I'm
Yes, no,
always-
you guys chat together, and I'll just mute the laptop, and then I'll come back and tell you to stop.
I can help. And we can assess in common and work together. If we both
Yeah.
know what the final goal is, we can sort of keep each other and kind of help each other on the way there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that's the thing we're thinking of. Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah,
we
well,
don't know what like
Is that,
synergy is.
you both know what you're doing, it's in different ways.
Is there a
It's
flow? Like,
Synergy means
Yeah,
working
if
together.
you have, yeah, it's very hard to work with somebody else if you haven't got the same, same understanding of what you do at the same time. You know, you can give it a hole and throw it in a hole and, so you need to, yeah, yeah.
So when everyone
Well, it literally means to
It doesn't breed it though,
One more minute.
so when everyone
like it needs it.
One more minute.
It doesn't breed it, how do you thought about it?
everyone can work together.
Because breeding is something you can reproduce in.
being the same.
Yeah, like I would say, clarity needs, or synergy needs clarity, because clarity breeds it.
So I think in football, clarity of what.
Clarity of what you understand.
And it's not like, it's gonna help.
And you can
yeah.
read something as what it's saying, it's already in your DNA for a long time.
Yeah, so I'd say, like I said, definitely.
In other words, it's always thinking breed is actually defined by what your DNA is.
Yeah.
something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
All right.
So, do we have
Well, we having a great plan.
push the ball forward or something?
All right. Are we all done? On Zoom, can you hear me again? All right. Did that work all right on Zoom? Were you guys able to talk? Oh, awesome. There we go.
Golfing greens.
Clarity breeds synergy. Let's just quickly work around the groups, and you can tell us your thoughts in 20 seconds or less. Oh, yeah?
Shall I start?
Yeah.
I thought you really wanted the acronym to be CBS.
Exactly. You nailed it. All right, on the couch, what did you guys think first?
We said synergy definitely needs clarity, but does clarity breed it? I think it helps, yes, obviously.
Yep.
Because if less people know what they're doing, two people can't work together for the same goal. So, and that, but I'm just trying to figure it backwards. Would it always breed it? I don't know, but it would definitely needs it.
Yeah, so you're saying you can't have synergy effectively without.
Clarity, because otherwise one person could be digging a hole, the other one's going in because
Yep.
they don't understand what's going on.
Exactly. Yep, that's good.
But clarity, are you saying clarity doesn't automatically mean you will?
Yeah, that's what, like I was saying backwards.
Clarity
Synergy,
doesn't guarantee synergy.
I reckon synergy needs clarity, but does clarity?
Yeah.
So that's I was
I think that's really good. So.
All apples are round and red, not all round and red things are apples.
Perfect. So exactly, if you need clarity in order to get synergy, but you probably need more than clarity
yeah.
in order to get synergy.
Yeah.
That's really good. Boys, beat that.
We
Little trap.
basically just talked about the fact that yeah, pretty much the same thing. Just like if you don't really know where you're going, you can't because synergy is not just that we're not parallel lines, we're helping each other out. So not just I know where I'm clarity where I'm going, but in this perspective of Kings, if I know where everyone else is going, then we can work together and actually help each other be not just keep ourselves good, but strengthen each other. That's with a football team, if everyone has clarity on the game plan, it doesn't just help them do their role better, but it helps everyone else do their roles better as well.
That's right. The more clarity you have, the more you're going to be able to work effectively together, hey? Yep. What on Zoom? Did you guys have any thoughts?
We're pretty much the same. Clarity does breed synergy.
Yes.
If you're not clear on your objectives, well, then you're going to be separated. So you're going to be working against what you're trying to achieve rather than with what you're trying to achieve. So makes perfect sense. Clarity breeds synergy.
Yep. Excellent. Well, that's great thoughts and great discussion there. And I like that. We need clarity if we're going to work together in synergy, and that's one of the things that it's important for us as Breakthrough and the leaders at Breakthrough. We don't want to just get our individual clarity for us as islands, because we're all working together. So we need clarity as a unit in order to have that synergy to work together. In order for us to have synergy, be able to work effectively together, what are some of the things that we need clarity on? So one that Mark said there is our objectives. What else do you think we need clarity on in order to be able to do this effectively?
I'd be I'd say our objectives and others' objectives.
Yeah, that's good. So objectives are your ours, and we'll say the rest of the team objectives.
I feel like, if we were to use the analogy of the SS leadership,
Yep.
you need to know where the ship's going in terms of the big picture. We're going to an island, but you also need to have clarity of what your role is doing as part of that. So my role on a ship might be, just cleaning it, or getting the sails up or whatever. But it's you need to have clarity at that higher level to know where we're going as a group collectively.
Yep.
And then where I'm going for my specific team.
Yeah. So you need a group target. I'm calling it there. And you need my individual role. Yep. That's really good. Any other things you reckon that we need clarity to be able to work together?
I reckon timing, because it's not just good enough to know when to do something, what to do, you've got to know when.
Yep. Yeah, timing. So what to do and when to do it. Any other thoughts, James? How important do you reckon this one is? We've said they're individual roles. What about this one? Others' roles. Sorry about my handwriting. How important do you think it is to understand the roles of others around in the?
I think it helps because it doesn't like Mom said, it doesn't necessarily guarantee effective, fruitful work, but it probably helps them. And like in that example of like the ship, I know who to go to, when to go to them. I can help them any ways I can. I also understand more of when to like things that be hands off, because it's like, oh, I actually know you're probably less likely to burn yourself out. Say it's like, oh, I see that's not getting done, I need to go do it. But no, actually I know someone else on the team is doing that, so I know to leave that alone because I trust them, because they know what they're doing. If that makes sense, you're less trying to fix others' mistakes because you don't actually really know what they're doing. And you think, oh, maybe that means it's been left. It's like, no, they're actually just doing it a different way or whatever.
I would have thought of an example, like particularly with Pastor Peter as a pastor. If I understand his role as a pastor, then that actually better helps him to help me. So
Totally.
that back and forth.
Yeah, if you understand his role, you know when and how to lean on him. You know when and how to submit to him. You know when it's like, this is not his role, so this is for my time to step up and own it. No, that's when it's his role, so that's when it's his time to own it. Yeah.
I know he's in a spot of leadership, so I know that's more than just a nice suggestion for potentially. That's I need you to get. That's not oh yeah, that's a good idea, I might try that. That's no, I'm actually going to try that as immediately sort of thing, because that's a spot of leadership or.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sort of thinking of when you said about individual role in others. It's like saying, travel agent's daughter I am. It's a cruise line. There may be several ships in that one cruise line, but you need to know where who's on each boat, because the owner of the cruise line is the one who's going to have vested interest in how the others are going.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's actually a great example with the ships that, if we look at us all as leaders, obviously, we could say we're all on the SS Breakthrough together, but all of us as leaders, you're all captaining your own little SS leadership. You know, Mark and Kirsty and Kyra are captaining now the SS Families of Faith Life Group, and Brooke is captaining the SS Communications, and we've all got these ships, and so we want we need clarity for our objectives, our target, our role, but you also want clarity for what the ships around you are doing, because that's how they all work together to get to the group goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If we actually, and
The
also,
last thing one cruise ship wants is another one to suddenly gear into its path.
yeah, exactly. If your cruise ship's going well, then the other one comes across and cuts this way. It doesn't make for great synergy. And so I actually think that's an area. I think I don't know. I've heard Craig Rochelle talk about this a bit. That's often an area of clarity which is underappreciated and overlooked. Is actually understanding the roles of others, and in our analogy, the other ships around you, because it's by understanding those, then you can work really effectively together. Understanding what's the role of my ship alongside the other ships and how it works out. Does that sort of make sense? Also, guys on Zoom, at any moment, if you've got anything you want to say, feel free just to shout out. We can
make a duck noise.
Jay says quack like a duck, and we'll let you talk. So if we look at this example here, I started to draw this. Believe it or not, these are a bunch of little ships on the side. I drew them pretty quickly, so they've each got a little sail and ship. But imagine each of these are us. Each of our teams, each of our places that we're leading. Now, on the other side, we know we've got our group target, which is this oasis called discipleship. See, they're all ships here. Because that's as Breakthrough as a whole, that is our mission, our goal is discipleship. So every one of our ships on the side here are working together to bring the whole Breakthrough fleet over to the discipleship paradise. But each of our ships has a slightly different role, has a slightly different part to play. And so it's really important that each of our ships, we understand, firstly, what that target is. We need to know where we're going, the whole team. We need to understand what our role and our goals and our targets are in that journey, our specific ship, because each ship will have a slightly different focus. And then we also want to understand how we work together with the other ships around us. I sort of think those are the three key ones. We want to know the end goal, which is for all of us together. We want to know our goal, and then we want to know, I'll say, where we fit, or how we work together with the other ships. Would you say if we had really good clarity about those three things, that would help us to breed good synergy?
Totally. It's kind of like what Dad's been speaking about the last couple of weeks, like the different parts of the body. It's like
Yeah,
the hand
exactly.
to say, oh, I can do this, so I'm good. It needs to be with ultimately we need to be with all the other parts of the body, or all the other grow teams and life groups, because we're all making different parts of the body to make up the body of Christ, sort of thing.
Exactly, we're all working together. So that's what I'd love us to actually talk about for the rest of tonight, is actually answer those three questions. Now, when I say those three questions, I'm going to focus especially on these two here. So, what is our specific goal? So for each of our ships, I would love everyone to come away from tonight with a really good understanding of this is the target and this is the goal for my ship. You know, if I'm, Josh, I'm leading a life group, I want Josh to go away tonight really clear, knowing this is the goal for my life group. This is what I'm targeting, this is what I'm aiming for. If I'm, Caitlin or Jay working in a grow team, I want them to understand really clearly, I want us to know this is the goal, this is what I'm aiming for. But then also to understand really clearly where we fit and how we work together. And I want us to grow and develop how our ships can work together and have clarity around that as we all work together towards the island of discipleship.
I imagine that will not just be the fact of not just knowing what the other person can do, but that you can then do things around that, following on. For instance, in basketball, when we play defense, I know, you may not, as the center, it's my role to watch the paint, which means if you see someone from my spot go through, you don't know, oh, I know why Jordan's not following them. You say, I can step in here to defend this guy because Jordan can't follow him because he has to be under the ring. And you can say, this guy's going here, but I don't just know here that I can call to Jordan and we can help each other. It's you can actually lean on each other and work. Not just know what they're doing, but actually work together.
Yeah. Exactly. The more clarity you have, the more synergy you can have. Now, I love what the couch potatoes. That was the name you gave your group. I love what you guys said before, that synergy does require more than clarity. Just by having that clarity and knowing where everyone fits will not alone produce synergy. We need other things. We need things like good feedback cultures. We need good cultures of people taking ownership and working together and actually actioning things and knowing how to work with boundaries and how to work effectively in a team. There's a range of other things as well. But I think for the purpose of what we're working towards, I think clarity helps a lot towards synergy. And I think this clarity would be really helpful for that. We're not going to focus on that first question, the end goal, because that's a big whole church goal of discipleship.
Dad, tell us in one word.
Yes. So, which Dad is about 11 sermons into a series on what it means to disciple. So I'm going to let him just keep humming along on that series, and we will embrace that and listen to that. But what Dad is preaching, that is our mission. That is the island we're working towards. What we're talking about tonight is now stepping that down a level and say, if Breakthrough's goal is discipleship, what is my goal of my ship? And then how does that work with the other ships around me? Is that making sense? Is that helpful?
Yeah,
is that good? I quite like that. That's good. So before we break into our smaller groups, what I want to do is just go through actually something which I don't know if we've actually done as a group before, but that's actually just lay out and answer this question of where we fit and do a little diagram of, as all the leaders represented here, the grow teams and the life groups, where we actually fit and how we work together and
Can I
what
draw
everyone's
it?
role is. Mum's pretty determined to draw something tonight.
Just to get it.
We're actually doing a follow-up session at 10 p.m. where you can do all the drawing if you'd like to. So that would be
That's
amazing.
it,
I
10
don't
p.m.
believe that.
When I
That's the
said
first
that,
hour it will be allowed.
When I said I'd love your input, I was not thinking about your input with the Apple Pencil.
I'd love you.
But
All in favour of mum drawing me?
That was
Oh,
the
yeah.
first edition.
So what I want us to do is actually go through a little diagram of how we actually all fit together. I know it's somewhat basic, but it would be really helpful, I think, to us to understand where we fit and how we work together. Does that sound good?
You can just put my name in the middle and then we can sort of go out from there.
Yes.
Start
So
from
we're
the
going to start. What's that?
Start from the
From the
bottom.
bottom.
Start from the bottom and work up. Here's Jay. It's what we call a bottom feeder. The janitorial team, led by
You've been
Jordan.
there a few years now, James.
No. Well, let's start from the top. Well, actually, no, we're not going to start from the very top because who's at the very top?
Jesus.
Jesus. If you didn't get that one right. Did you say Putin? Is that? No, Jesus is at the very top. But we're going to work down from Jesus, and the top level we're going to look at here is our pastoral leadership. Okay, if you're in the room or on Zoom, point to somebody who is in pastoral leadership. Okay, no one besides me is pointing at me. That's interesting. No one besides Jay is pointing at
No,
Jay.
Josh has got me.
Yes, we have Pastor Peter and Pastor Christine, aka Mum and Dad, we can all call them Mum and Dad, have been tasked with the exciting job of pastoring Breakthrough Church. Now, when they're in that pastoral leadership position, they are representing the church board. We've given them that. We're not going to work up through those levels. For the sake of what we're doing at Breakthrough, we have Pastor Peter and Pastor Christine in the pastoral leadership role. Now, under inside them, under that pastoral leadership, we've set up a number of teams and groups that we're all working in. And they fall into two main categories of what we work in. We have grow teams. And grow teams are where we use we come together in teams, use the skills and the gifts that God has given us to be our part in the body. So we have grow teams that are things like a grow team of musicians. You say we all have, God has given us a gift of music, and so we come together and grow together as musicians to use that skill for the glory of God. Or we might have grow teams of super geek commanders or things like that.
Can we just clarify there? Some of the grow teams don't actually exist as grow teams, but we see them, like a cafe. We don't have a cafe grow team, but they effectively will.
That's right, yeah. We will have grow teams for things like cafe. We will have grow teams for things like brekkie clubs, and that's basically the idea. Is a grow team is a group of people growing and serving together, serving God together, using their gifts. In the past, what a church might have used as like a volunteer team, we say, because it's actually not just about volunteering, it's about growing and using your gifts and talents to serve God and to grow together in synergy. So we have a series of grow teams. In a minute we'll write down the grow teams that we have currently. The other key pillar we have here is called life groups. And that's where groups of people come together, and rather than coming together to use their gifts and serve, they come together to do life and to grow together, to help each other grow as disciples, to form authentic relationships, and to grow. Does that make sense? So under these we have a few. Currently, as of this moment at Breakthrough, we have 3 life groups and 4 grow teams, effectively. And that's not because we've said that is the perfect number of grow teams and life groups. It's because currently that's what God has given us the people and the grace for. I wholeheartedly expect that to significantly increase and to multiply as we go forward. But our grow teams, we have 4 grow teams. I hope I can write this and make it readable. We have the creative, actually sorry, can I undo that? Yes, I can. We have the creative grow team, we have a grow team for events, organising our events. We have a grow team for communications and a grow team for super kids.
There's another one. Leaders.
That is true. That sits a little bit differently, but yes, we are also a grow team. We take the leaders of all these teams and we come together and
That's
form a
like
grow
another
team as well.
Little bit
Yep.
on, yeah. I was just more wondering where that actually would sit in that. I was just curious.
No, that's a very good question. So our grow teams are led by our creative team, Chris Heath, our events team, Caitlin Grant, our comms team, Brooke Lewis, and
coming up, not yet, and we're in transition.
in transition, our Super Kids team is actually going to be led by Jordan Lewis, who is stepping up to take over the leading the Super Kids team, which is very very
So
exciting.
good.
Genuinely very exciting things happening there. So currently those are our 4 grow teams. Not because we've set a breakthrough. These are the 4 grow teams we shall forever have. It's because at the moment that's what we've got the resource for. That's what God's put his hand on, and so that's what we're doing. Making sense? Easy enough. Then our life groups, we have 3 life groups. One led by Joe Rose, one led by Josh Dobie, and one led by the Stockwells and Kyra. And so they can be circles because they're life groups. And so Joe's life group has been running for quite some time. Josh's and Stockwell's group are launching this week, which is seriously exciting. So good stuff. Yeah, that is something that we celebrate big time. So that's sort of how we sit. Now, these, all of our leaders in these positions, like we said last week, the 2 keys that we want to focus on are clarity and feedback, which we need. Feedback, it can be a bit of a dirty word. In our leaders growth, and we talked about this really extensively last year. It's really the concept of saying, help me grow, having an attitude of constantly on your journey of leadership, having an attitude of saying, I need you to help me grow. I constantly need feedback, I need growth, but I need someone to be helping me grow. So it's really important for us that each of these leaders has a clear personal place that they look to as their help me grow person who they go to, that they submit to. So this person effectively sort of sits in this gap here. As pastoral leadership give direction, it will come through this level of people to these leaders, and each of these leaders actually goes to this help me grow person to say, help me fulfill this, help me work this out, help me do this more fruitfully. They answer to them, not in the point that obviously having you under your thumb, but it's basically the person you're in direct submission to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so in that position over here, there is a role of a life group's leader, effectively, over all these. And this is a role that currently doesn't actually have one person, it doesn't currently have a person to fill. But for the interim, at the moment, we have Pastor Peter and Kyra Lewis effectively filling that role of overseeing the life groups. So everyone who's leading a life group will be having help me grow feedback and working alongside either Dad or Kyra for that life group. Over here, again, for the moment, the teams that are related to the creative, that person is me. So that's creative and the comms. The teams that are not related to the creative, so the events and the super kids, that person is Pastor Peter Lewis. That person is Dad. In the future, I see these teams splitting into actually departments. We have like a department head. So say something like the creative team, you would actually have a creative department who would sit here, and then 4 or 5 grow teams underneath. But that's something we're growing into and growing towards. And then these are all obviously working under the pastoral leadership, sort of like that. Does that make sense? Does that sort of give some clarity for you? So if you're working in a grow team, it's really important you know who this person is, your your help me grow
Yeah.
person, and you need to be working consistently with them to be working through how can I be growing, how are we developing, how's my team working, how can my team be more effective, are we hitting our goals, and that sort of thing. Similarly, if you're in a life group, you need to be constantly working with Pastor Okara, how are we growing, are we hitting our goals, are we being effective? For all that to be effective, obviously we need to be able to answer the question, what are our goals? Because that's going to be a key thing we're working towards. So I hope that's not too dry, but does that sort of make sense?
Really
Is that helpful?
That was really, really helpful.
Okay, that's really good. There's one other role which doesn't fit, well, it does fit into this diagram. I should have left space at the side, but I didn't. And that's a role, I'm going to pick a cool colour here. Pink. I don't know if this is a person that should have pink, Jay, but okay.
Holy Spirit.
and this is a role that I'm going to say sort of comes in across here. And it's a role it's sort of my, actually CL, that's actually my primary role of working towards the strategy of helping all these teams work effectively together. Does that make sense? So in that role, actually helping all these grow teams side by side, and also over here with the life groups, helping them all try and work side by side and effectively towards the mission. So if I'm doing that well, all these leaders should be really empowered and free to wholeheartedly just do what you're called to do, and I can be helping work with the other ships. It's sort of like this diagram here. It's almost like a role where I'm jumping between all the ships, or maybe I'm in a helicopter over the top, helping all the ships veer and stay side by side. Is that a good way of describing it, Dad?
Yeah, it's the it's because not only do we have
I'm
a
gonna give myself a
focus,
helicopter.
not only because we're focusing forward, you've got to coordinate sideways as well. Do you know what I mean? And you know, we're not just four ships. When we all get there, we all turn around and see who else got there.
Yes, I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that sort of trying to look sideways and see, and so that's why I'm doing roles like leading the grow team leadership, because it's helping all the leaders work together and come together and grow and work towards a strategy overall.
By having grow team leaders, we all sort of we're communicating with each other all the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the fact that we're all in the same touch point, we're communicating, and we're learning the same things together. So that helps us to, to be,
all our ships to sort of be effective,
Yeah.
work and work side by side effectively. So that sort of doesn't fit that in the diagram the same way, but that's my main role at Breakthrough this year, is to try and help all the teams work effectively together so that everyone can be free and empowered to own what your ship is doing and enjoy it and go wholeheartedly after it. Even as I was thinking about it this afternoon, I was like, I think a marker for me, if I'm doing that well, is that all these people are free to embrace and own and love what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Does anyone have any questions about that? Because I'd really love to get that clarity on that question, where we fit. Do you have any questions about where you fit or where someone else fits or how any of that works? Because this is the time for us to get clarity.
Can I add clarity? A lot of the ones that we're making a lot of grow teams that aren't actually physically grow teams yet, but they're still people there functioning. A lot of them to do with the things that happen on a Sunday, like the welcome team, the greeters, the cafe, things like that. They will effectively be under Caitlin because they are primarily assisting in the events. But we haven't actually locked them in. So there's a whole lot of sub stuff under there that's not actually labelled, but that's where it all fits.
Totally. So under the events, I really see that as we develop more leaders and grow, people will have, underneath Caitlin's events, there'll be actually a grow team for the welcome team, a grow team for the cafe, a grow team for what different elements of events. Similar to under creative with Chris, as that grows, we'll have a grow team for the musicians, a grow team for the designers, a grow team for lighting
Yeah,
techs or
and stuff
audio.
like-
Does that make sense? So
yeah.
we see these grow teams. These are very wide-ranging grow teams that become departments and grow as we grow.
Yeah.
But for now, they're just functioning as a grow team and just looking after that.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, some of the grow teams particularly cannot function by themselves, like events. It's not only
Yeah.
all the things. It's going to go. You've got to have all the sideways stuff, and you know what I mean. You know, what I mean,
That's where the,
you can't sort of say, oh, each of these are working on their own thing. They're often working on something which is, you know, like an events thing could just, you know, as something simple as a Sunday morning meeting. You know what I mean? But in order for that Sunday meeting to function, it's creative, it's comms, the super kids, we're all sort of
Yeah,
working.
One team.
Yeah.
exactly. One team working. Exactly.
that is where that key of like, unlike the ships just knowing where each other are, not to bump into each other, it's actually how can I fruitfully and effectively team up with you to create, to be even more fruitful than either of us could be on our own sort of thing. That's sort of how that, and same with the life group sort of thing.
Exactly. Cool. Does anyone else have any questions about that?
No.
No.
And I'm guessing there will be ones where like people still be in other grow teams or other stuff. Like for instance, like even with me doing this with kids, I'll still be a part of media. I'll be a part
Yeah,
of this.
if you're in one grow team, it doesn't mean you're not allowed to be
Totally.
doing anything with others. But that's something as we grow, more and more people can be free to really focus on your, like, what you're thriving in, sort of.
Joe, you're no longer allowed to talk to anybody in creative.
Yeah.
No.
That's what I should.
Yeah,
I've already defriended him.
they're
Sorry?
unclean.
I already defriended
Yeah,
him.
you've got to unfriend them all on Facebook.
Does that help? Does that give
Yeah.
Alright.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, what we'll do, I'll actually later I'll take a screenshot of that and I'll post it in the Slack channel, just as something that people can refer back to. What we're going to do for the rest of the time is actually break into grow team leaders and life group leaders, and I want us to focus on now this second question: what is our goal? So if you're leading a life group, and hopefully everyone was able to think about the reflection questions I sent earlier. If you're leading a life group, what is the goal of your life group? If you're leading a grow team, what is the goal of your grow team? And how do you work effectively towards that? So let's break into groups. So grow team leaders will be Jay, Caitlin, Brooke, and myself. I don't know if you want to stay with us. And life group leaders go Dad, you've got Joe, Josh, and Mark and Kirsty, and Kyra. So we'll split the Zoom now into a couple of breakout rooms, and Caitlin, you can come with me in the grow teams. Mark and Kirsty, you can go with Kai in the life groups.
Perfect.
Perfect. All right. I will separate. We'll stay here, Mum. You guys can go in the other room.
Oh,
Will you do breakout?
I will do the breakout.
Okay, perfect.
Sign manually. Here we go. Let's see if I can manage it.
Yeah, it's good. So
What?
I was trying to
I'll
remember
get the
which
light
that I
one here,
followed,
Peter.
followed that, but I'm here with the directions, which is me,
Christine, am I able to get a cold drink?
Yes, you can. Would you like cold or hot? What would you like?
Cold.
Okay, what would you like? What
All right. Should be right to go in your breakout rooms, I think.
so
Yeah, something like
Mark and
cold.
Kirsty just follow
Yeah,
them.
do you
Yeah.
want something sugar or sugarless?
Alright, because you have
Uh,
access to it. I don't know whether you just need like one breakout room or, but that was very handy having that little diagram.
Alright.
Yeah,
You're welcome to unmute if you want, Caitlin.
So that was really handy having that diagram as well. That was
Was that helpful?
really helpful.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
an apartment in Queensland, would that be alright?
Of, like, next
Yes,
to the-
I've got one of
Yeah,
those
and
in
then
the
like
backyard.
next to
And-
Oh, good.
And well, even like super kids, one of the first things I really want to focus on is turning into like primary and like preschool, and like people that really thrive in one or the other and learning that. So like
Totally.
they're truly like learning. So
Is that,
I
is
very
that
soon
cool?
want to turn it into two grow team. Turn into the two for like pre and primary, so that people can really learn how to teach different like stuff. So and even that would become like a little.
Looks at the toilet.
No,
Even
we'll just
Blazing-
wait for Brooke to
Even
come back
like
for a
raising
week break.
like middle and high and stuff, depending on what happens.
Ricky, why don't you start
Hey,
here?
can you keep an eye on the microphones?
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
I realised with Richard not joining and Chris not here, Richard has got a family meeting. This is nice.
So you can just talk about dishes and stuff.
No,
Yeah.
Dad, pass me my water. Pass me my water.
Can we see Caitlin?
Yes.
No, I think this is better. As it is.
I just had her there so if she can read the screen. If we is that alright?
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin.
I can move it if it's.
No.
Hi.
Is she smiling?
laptop, my iPad.
I think you found it quite.
Amusing. Can we put that fan back on now? Oh, we have to do put the mic on.
Okay. So for this discussion, thank you, buddy. We're talking specifically in the context of being effectively grow team leaders. Now, as Dad was saying, like currently, well, obviously, a team like yours, Caitlin, would be a department in the future and have multiple teams underneath. And so I recognise that what we're talking about here, there's stuff we need to grow into. Do you know what I mean? But I think it's really healthy for us to sort of work through everything with the with that lens of we do things with like grow teams or life groups. That it's like grow teams is how we do it. So we build those foundations, and then that gives us the capacity to grow and develop. Even if at the beginning you're in a grow team, you're leading a grow team. Well, like Brooke
Thank you,
effectively is a grow team leader, and currently there's really nobody in your grow team. Which, you know, says something for the body odor situation or something like that. But I would really love us to still actually really, it would be easy for us just to say, oh, okay, it's not really a grow team because no one's there. But I'd love for us to really, really deliberately view it like say, no, this is a grow team because we expect it to grow, and I see it flourishing with lots of people and more people joining. And so we're going to start now building this as a grow team. We're not going to say, oh, we call it a grow team, but it's really just Brooke doing things. No, Brooke leads the communications grow team. Even if that team for a season is just her, Brooke leads the communications grow team, and we're passionately ready for that to be a team of people. You know, Caitlin leads, I'll wait for Caitlin's back to say that, but you know, Jay leads the Super Kids grow team with lots of Super Kid leaders. Caitlin leads the events grow team with lots of event planners, and eventually that's a department where there's multiple grow teams underneath. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Currently, Chris leads a creative team, but eventually that would split probably back into music, media, and then more
Lots
as
of
well.
it.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be my heart. That we can build this in a way that we're ready to grow.
Yeah.
Because I think if we build those foundations now, we can be ready for that. What it also means we can do is we can build stuff in a way now that we can really learn to really effectively work together and build those systems that when it does grow, it will sustain.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
Sorry,
let's.
I decided to put sugar in my tea.
Oh no, that's all right. You're welcome to put sugar in your tea. Let's firstly. I'd love to answer that question of what are the goals of a grow team? So for you guys thinking about each of you three specifically lead a grow team, do you want to just call out your thoughts about what are the goals of a grow team?
Of any grow team, or specifically the grow team?
Of any grow team, because I think the goals of a grow team can actually be the same across every grow team, but then obviously each grow team, what that looks like will change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, can I throw out one?
Yeah.
Because this is the goal of the grow team, not necessarily the team sort of thing. Like for me, like there's my goal for Super Kids is different from my goal for the Super Kids grow team sort of thing. Because like Super Kids has the goal like teaching the kids. Grow team is like the people in like the other leaders sort of thing. Or which would you be talking about?
Yeah, well, it's
That'd be similar, but
it's just like your grow team is the Super Kid commanders and the outworking in the super kids.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
But anyway,
They're like- they're
give your
really-
answers and we can
Yeah.
thrash all that.
Goals of a grow team, number one would be to create other grow team leaders or other leaders in general to have leaders. Like ultimately a good sign of a thriving one is people that like developing into leadership sort of thing.
That's cool. Yeah, so I think that's cool. Your first thought is to say, my goal can be to develop more leaders. That feeds into what we talked about at the start last year. We said, I'd love us to say at Breakthrough that our biggest win is multiplication. So our biggest, if you're leading a grow team, if your grow team multiplies into 2 grow teams, or if your life group multiplies into 2 life groups, that is the biggest win we celebrate, because that means there's growth, there's multiplication. So I think that's a great goal to start with. What are the other goals of a grow team?
To grow in our relationship with God.
Yep. So the members of the team grow.
And growing stronger spiritually.
Should we say grow as disciples? Is that?
Yeah.
Is that still what you're saying there?
Yeah.
Yep. That's good. Just
another
throw 'em
one
out.
would be people are like in their groove. You have people who are serving in their groove and finding their groove.
Yep.
And on that journey. Whatever
Yeah.
that
So
looks like.
do you want to hear when we're saying in their groove? It means that people are thriving. They're like, this is what I was made for. Yep.
Okay, you put it in their journey, in their group, and also maybe I could just like next to like helping people on that journey. So like you have people come in and not just necessarily but also like having people just come in, not maybe come in a bit like it's a bit of a new territory, but they come in and sort of they find what their groove is through the course of our grow teams.
Yep. So and the journey of it.
Yeah.
Yep. That's good.
Would it be like I don't know obviously because
Oh no, I really want your input.
would it be to also a goal would be to help other people in your grow team really understand their value and their place in the kingdom, and like but the fact that that they're a person of value, whether they're a leader that you've developed or actually just a person in your grow team that's actually not a leader but that kind of thing.
I reckon I would say that goes like the I cover that under the concept of in their group.
Yeah, so
that every person in your team is finding your place, is finding their place, they're finding their value.
Their value, yeah.
They're finding that when we're talking about developing leaders, we're not saying that means leaders are more important. It's just finding those people who are called and finding that every person is thriving in.
Exactly.
This is what I was
Not
made
every
to do.
person is being forced down the path of becoming a leader. Not every person is being forced into the path of just being someone who serves. It's whatever their group is, and ultimately wherever God has called them, they're finding that journey, and we're facilitating that journey.
Yeah, we're helping them to get that place. Oh, this is just what I was made to do. This is good.
This is what God.
Yep.
I'd say being spirit led is a key of any great team, is that it's not just led by theory, but led by the spirit. I don't know where that.
Can I put that over here? I think that is an excellent thing. I think that's actually something we're going to talk about. It's actually a value. It's a sense that it's a value that say everything we do, this is how we do it, is being led by the Spirit. It's not, our goal is not to be led by the Spirit. Our goal is to do this, and we commit our values that we will always do it by being led to the Spirit. So that's actually not our target. That's not the island we're aiming for. That's something we commit to doing in how we get to the island.
Definitely, that makes a lot of sense.
Any other thoughts or any goals of a grow team? And you can think very specific, like even if you just name it about a goal for your team, and then we can make it generic. That's fine.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I feel like the goal of the grow teams is like to grow as disciples and grow in their craft.
Yeah.
So it will be for members to grow in their craft.
Yep. So growing their craft. So when we say their craft, that means like we're not just a life group growing as disciples. We're growing as musicians. We're growing in how we do events. We're growing in how we do communication. We're growing in how we lead kids.
Definitely. I would say, I think one goal is our team see like lasting fruit. A goal would be like not just lasting fruit, but like actually like bearing fruit and salvations and stuff, whether that be within the group or from
and
the
that's
things
actually,
we learn as our group.
That's a really good one because And this is something that when we launched Grow Teams, we went really, really hard, and I did this on purpose, with the narrative Grow Teams are all about growing, because our teams sort of, I think there was perspective that our teams, well, you know, the people would be like, it's just all about me doing the things.
Yeah.
But we said that's a grow team, we're here to grow together. So we really focused on that. That's why we named it a grow team. But the concept of coming together as a grow team is coming together and growing together as disciples and in our craft, so that together we can do things and bear fruit. You know, if we're the events grow team, it's got to be a goal of the events team to be creating fruitful events, or a goal of the Super Kids grow team to be bearing fruit in the kids.
We're seeing super kids that are spirit led and praying for people and inviting their friends to church.
Exactly.
That's the ultimate goal of it, is that we grow commanders and grow leaders.
And so we're saying in order to do this, to bear fruit, we need to grow. As disciples, we need to grow in our craft so that we can bear fruit.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
What about doing it in an atmosphere of fun?
Yep.
Because that's always been such a strong thing in the church.
Absolutely.
The
Can I
fun-
put that up here as a
value.
another value?
Yes.
Because again, I don't reckon that's the island where we're not aiming to get to an island of fun.
But we want
We're
it to
aiming
be
get to
fun
an
while we're getting there.
Yeah. Well, and we even more wanting, we're saying we're committed to making this fun on the journey.
I would say a goal. It sounds a bit weird. It's probably fits under other things, but there's like people really like change more than you would expect. I don't really know how to put it, but like you see people come and like really sort of recapture a fire for God, and people who maybe like you see changes that are so drastic changes, and see people really like that.
Can I put that under the people growing as disciples?
Totally.
That change could be like, and I agree, that change could be drastic, and I want that change to be like, I've grown more than I would have if I wasn't in a growth team.
Yeah,
Totally. Exactly.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the goals?
I'm trying to think the other things I got listed would all fit underneath
Under this.
those
Yep.
ones, so I can't think of anything
One
that's not there.
other one would be like to create like and to make it an environment where people can like grow each other a bit as well. It's not just an environment where it's like
So growing together.
growing together, and it's probably more of a value is like making an environment where people are doing that. It's not just like me. It's like, hey, they're helping each other underneath, and everyone's actually discipling each other, not just
and that's probably again. I reckon that's a value thing.
That's
in the
the
sense
value.
of together. Like Dad's been. Why did I write that? That's we're committed to the journey of that whole discipling together concept.
Yeah.
Helping each other, connecting together.
That's why it's not just that's
It
why
is
it's
partly a goal because we want to grow together.
Yeah, but that's why it's not that's why we're a team. We're not just a platform where we post content on how to grow how to grow as a disciple, how to grow in your craft. Go there, find that, do it. It's that's why it's teams with things like Slack or with things like these touch points, because we are growing together, not just you're growing as in your craft and you're growing in your as a disciple.
Yep, exactly. Are there any others?
Sorry, not that I can think of.
Can I add one more that I think is a goal, and would love your guys' thoughts? And I'm saying be our body part / work with the body.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea of a grow team. Is that breakthrough is breakthrough is a body. You know, I know there's like these capital C church is the body, that sort of thing. But if you look at breakthrough as the body, each of the grow teams are a body part, and so I would see a goal for each of our grow teams is to grow in there, to bear fruit, but to do that in a way that you're your body part, and so you're working together with the other body parts to make the whole body work.
Totally.
I think that's sort of the idea of a grow team, is that you actually you think of a life group people join together because of often their demographic. Like you might have a ladies group or a young families group or whatever. A grow team, you come together because you say we are all part of the same body part. We're all musicians, we all make up the foot or the hand or whatever. And so goal of grow team is to sort of to do that. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Because
I think when you keep it to that, it stops you trying to do more than you're called to do, and also makes sure that you do everything you're called to do. To make, if we as for me with super kids, if our body part is the hand, but I'm trying to do everything that the foot does as well, then
Yeah.
I'm going to A, burn out my grow team, and B, be a tenth as productive as I would be.
Totally. Or if you're just saying like we're just doing hand things, hand, and then you've got like a rogue hand
Yeah,
sitting
totally.
flapping around in the corner. It's not actually connecting and helping the rest of the body grow.
Totally.
Do you reckon we could summarize all that? And I genuinely, I'm just thinking is into three goals. Grow team goals. One is grow together.
Yeah.
So grow together is in everyone in the team is growing. It's a space where everyone's growing together as disciples and in their craft. Two is that then they're bearing fruit. So as we're growing together, we're actually producing things that are fruitful. Because that's the idea of a grow team is we actually do things together. And then three, we're effectively being our body part. That in our fruit bearing, we're then doing that in a way that works with the rest of the body and bears our fruit effectively.
Yeah.
I think that's really good.
I know, Caitlin, would you like if you looked at your like the events grow team as is now and said if you could these are obviously broad goals, and then for each team it will look a little bit different. You know, and the fruit that you'll bear will be different. How you grow will be different. But if you looked at your grow team, would you be happy to say if my team achieved those three goals, it would be a win, we'd be ticking?
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yep, I think that summarises it good.
And because actually I'd love us to really, if we're bought in and good with this, I actually want us to really commit to saying this is the goals of a grow team at Breakthrough are threefold. If we achieve those, is there anything that you would feel like we're not quite doing all the things, or as in all the things that Jesus wants us to do?
Yeah, I'd say we're growing, we're bearing fruit, and we're being what we're called to be, where we're called to be. I reckon that's really good.
Yeah, I think that'd be three good goals.
How do you feel about it? And I really mean it. I want your input as that pastoral leadership. If the church had grow teams that were achieving those three things.
Yeah, no, very much. Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, then, if we have that clarity, then I'd love for us to just brainstorm for a minute. What do we need? Like, I'm thinking, what systems? What do we need to do? What do we need in order to facilitate that? Do you know what I mean? If we say our three goals for our grow teams is to have a team that's growing together, a team that's bearing fruit, and a team that's being its part in the body. What do we need for those? Could we quickly just work through each of those three and say, what do we need in order to do each of those three? Like what does my team need to have or to do in order for that? Do you want to do it? So what if we start with one, growing together? What do we need in order for that to be happening effectively?
Okay, so first thing I would say one thing I would say I need to be growing together. This is a bit more of a generic one and overview one on specific, but would be like clarity, like sort of thing. I guess that's sort of in cover, like that clarity of what we're growing towards, sort of thing. Like, I guess that clarity probably covers all of them because it's like you sort of need clarity in everything.
You can think even a bit more specifically, like what do you need in order to have a team grow together?
Probably somewhere to facilitate craft growth and also discipleship growth, but somewhere where people can go to get training materials and that stuff.
Yeah. So you need like training content.
Yep. And something that facilitates that.
Yep. when you say when you say something facilitates that, do you mean like a what do you mean?
Like something like an app or website, something where people can go where there's constant training content going there, sort of thing. Like
something like some sort of
something like what Ed app will probably be, sort of thing, if we go with that, like
so
that.
some sort of forum for that. Yep.
Yeah.
You need a team. You need a team of people.
Yeah. Mm.
But even to start with, like you could be growing your own craft anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
Like
I take that back. You don't. You need a team of at least one.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And we've all
I
got
mean,
a team of
you
one.
could be growing in your, whether it's book with communications or storytelling. You can be learning more about it even if there's only one person.
Yeah.
And ultimately it's better when you've got more. I don't mean that.
Oh no, but that, we don't wait to have more people to be growing.
Can I throw one out? And this is a bit of a weird one because it's not really honest, but I'd say buy-in would be a key one. Is you kind of, when you do have other people, you need people that sort of have that buy in to make it productive and effective and fruitful. I think you do need that buy-in from the people.
And even if it's a team of one, you need buy-in.
Totally.
I'm going to grow.
Well, like from like the super, because like I don't just need more than people. I'd rather have one other person on my team who's bought into growing as a disciple and growing in their craft than 10 people that are kind of like, I'd rather just sort of stick where I am.
Sorry, can I update? I think my battery's about to die. Do you reckon you could just grab my charger for me or any USB charger? There's one actually. Actually, I think
I have one upstairs. I can grab.
Oh, is that? Thank you so much, bro.
I can't believe he's not asleep.
I know. I can go and reset it if I need to. He hasn't sounded super.
It doesn't say. Is he crying or laughing or?
He's rolling now. He'd cry. He was standing at the edge before, but now he's just laying around rolling.
I think he's normally eventually just go to sleep. But I think he might just be playing and.
Secretly,
While you're just plugging that laptop in, I'm just going to quickly
go for it. So anyway, I don't want to take too long on this question. It was just sort of an interesting. Anything else we need in order specifically to grow together? Do you have any thoughts, Caitlin, for your?
Sorry, it's it was jumping around a bit. Sorry. I think it's better now. The Holy Spirit.
Yep, definitely.
Like spirit-filled growing.
Absolutely. That's excellent. Yep.
I think that's. Otherwise, I think that's good.
Yeah, probably. And this is just sort of brainstorming, like, because obviously you need to have growth goals and things like that. Well, one of the things is with this is I'll say touch points. That's one of the reasons the key reason I think we do touch points is to actually come together and grow together, not just to do the things. And that's why for me the touch points are a real priority and a real key. Is so that when the teams come together, it's not just like, it's not just sort of giving lip service to it. It's not just saying, we want you to grow, but just come on Sunday and do your things. It's like, no, we actually commit time to coming together and getting in the room for the purpose of growing, because we say our first goal, before bearing fruit, our first goal is actually to grow together. So that's sort of, for me, that's really the essence of why we do, and we have touch points, is because it's really giving priority, saying at the heart of it we're growing, and then we're bearing fruit out of that.
I think that's a really good point. I don't know whether you mentioned this while I was doing the weed. Constant communication, I think.
That's a good one. Communication.
Communication and consistency, I think, is also key. I don't know whether they go together or not, but like having that consistency in everything we do, I think that helps it be, because like touch points are awesome, but also what you don't want it to be is like, you don't want them to be major moments that like just die off the moment you say goodbye.
Where we grow for 2 hours every month.
Totally.
That's good. We're at time, so I'll go through the second one, and because I'd love to talk about the third one a bit, because that's something that's, I think, developing in my understanding. Second one, bearing fruit. don't know if we need to talk to this one for a lot, because I think for all the teams, it will be reasonably self-evident
Yeah.
bearing fruit. Like events, if we're saying a goal is to bear fruit, that means we have events that are fruitful.
I would say probably the key one there is clarity.
Yeah.
Is,
Yeah.
Clarity of your wins.
Yeah.
So if you have a clarity of this is what makes an event actually fruitful, not
Yeah.
just exciting. Clarity of this is what is a win for super kids, not
A
just
win.
that 10 kids said they loved it and it was amazing. No, these are actually the
Elliot,
specific
A win for super
Elliot,
kids isn't that.
In the
Yeah.
scriptures.
A win for super kid isn't that I got through all my points in my notes and no one
No.
interrupted. A win for super kids is that a kid from Bayswater Primary School came in and actually asked, wait, why do we pray? And they went away saying, is that why we do this? Like that's a win, is that
Yeah.
they grew, not.
I really do. I think the testing of Elliot.
Oh, totally, that's
To me,
great.
that's a real win.
Oh, that yeah.
After so much
That's-
teaching, to suddenly find a kid without even
Totally.
That's a,
no, that's
the
that kind of
the
thing.
best win fruit for super kids is things that happen outside of super
Yeah.
kids when they adapt it to their own lives.
Exactly,
Yeah.
when they're living out.
Mm.
And probably Brooke, for yours, I reckon communications, this would be great, and I'd actually love for us to work together as we do the Help Me Grow stuff on, and I'm sure you've done some of this anyway with Dad, but clarifying what are wins for communications, because I reckon that is less self-evident than the others. Like, if you're talking about social media and stuff like that,
there's a lot of numbers.
there's a lot of numbers
Yeah.
and a lot of seeming wins, but I reckon it'd be great for us. And I'm not saying you don't do that, I'm saying this is a new space for me.
Yeah.
But I would love to actually work to what are the wins that we're going to really celebrate.
Yeah.
Similar to what we're saying, like with an event, it's like we know that these are the next steps we're aiming for people to take.
Yeah.
What are the things that we're really aiming our communications to achieve and that we'll really
One of
celebrate?
the things that I would kind of throw in, and I don't
Yeah.
like, I've got no idea, I haven't talked to any of you, but is that with a win often with social media, I would always say is not how many likes you get, because
No.
you only need every person in the church to like it, and you've already you get a good decent number. But if you had somebody who, as I remember happened with you, with I think it was KCM, when you were really struggling, and their social media post was almost like it was written personally for you. And I remember you rang David and told him, and I remember he said he so appreciated that, because he said you never know, but he said that to him was a win, that somebody in Melbourne needed that exact message and that exact wording that day to really change their life around. And I think that kind of thing to me would always be a win.
Oh,
A testimony that's,
absolutely,
whether
yeah.
it's non-Christian or a Christian, has suddenly, it's just like they've been desperate and they've opened up in the church post, said whatever, and it was exactly what they needed to hear. That to me is a win to obviously you listen to the Holy Spirit. And that's even better than saying we've got 50 likes
Oh,
on
I
it.
definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's excellent. Things like that.
Yeah.
Things like, and we'll talk through this. Things like specific next steps. Like the concept of next steps. Like seeing communication as a tool to imagine if we had a massive win that someone joins a life group through our social media posts. Do you know what I mean? Like you actually then have someone in a cycle to solving things like that. So
I think that's one of the keys with why one of the key values is that being spirit led, is because all that stuff, those things we can never really know. It's easy to figure out if your goal is 50 likes, you know how to do that. That's just throw a bunch of hashtags on and look up what's the biggest trends. But these wins, same with Super Kids, same with creators, same with events, the wins we're going for, they can only be achieved by hearing what the Holy Spirit says, because He's the only one that knows how to get to those wins, sort of thing. So that's one of the keys of it being spirit led is that part of it.
Can I put a second one here, and then I'll jump to the third one? But I think it's the Help Me Grow pathway. The idea of that, and some the concept of Help Me Grow. So we talked about last year as an alternative to saying the word feedback, but it's basically that concept of, as a leader, everything we're doing, always looking at others, say, help me grow, help me be more fruitful, help me understand this better. And that's why in our structure we say we want every leader to have a help me grow person. It's not like I squash you and tell you what to do, but it's someone who's overseeing that department. Because I think a real key for that is constantly refining our wins. So, that small conversation there with Brooke, it's like that's a classic what our help me grow will look like is like, all right, we've done these posts, we've done this communication. What have we achieved? Are we hitting our wins? Let's refine that more. Oh, this is what we're really aiming for. Do you know what I mean? This is what we're really aiming for. It will be. I think that Help Me Grow pathway will be constantly clarifying that with the events. It will be like, we did this event and it was really good and we hit this, but I feel like we need to see more people actually step into a disciple pathway or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's that constant refinement process
And because
will help us to be really fruitful.
and even not just to help me grow at the end of it, it's like the across the time, like Super Kids, I could be planning a Super Kids event.
Yeah.
And how we bear fruit, the clarity of the wind will become more and more clear as it becomes more and more clear in like our hearts, what we're going for and who's going to be there and what the event's going to look like or whatever.
Yeah.
As those things grow, you need to have feedback to make sure your idea of what the wins, that's changing, that consistent feedback of, now the event's actually taking place only for preschoolers, so the wins will look different now, sort of thing. So now we can go after them more. But
yeah, exactly. That's great. I think they're both really key ones. I'd love to say for the Help Me Grow, I think that is going to be a real key one. I would love for us to say this month and even this week, let's really establish those. Last month we set up Slack because that was like a starting point. We've started to get those moving. We're slacking. We're slackers.
We're slacking off.
I know Jay and Caitlin, I think Caitlin's already sort of doing this with Dad. I don't know what you're up to, Jay, but that will be for you guys to work through with Dad. Brooke, I'd love for you and I to actually, let's really clarify what this pathway looks like and how we're going to do this together, because I'm really excited, because I think, communications and socials is a space we can see great fruit. I've already sort of started with Chris, who's on the phone in the future, but when you're watching this, Chris, let's chat and let's make this what's our pathway and our continual system going to be. I think for leading a grow team, I think it's going to be really important that that's a constant dialogue. It's a two-way thing, but it's got to be that constant refinement to make us constantly more and more fruitful. And especially early on, I think it would be really good for it to be always consistent, but often. I'm thinking so at least every couple of weeks. We've got to touch base and refine and develop that, because that's what we're doing.
Can I just throw in the bear fruit one? Another key I think would be to, I don't know where this really goes, but just that a constant reminder of the fact that it's fruit within the team and fruit from the team. It's like, I want to see fruit within my grow team, and I want to see fruit being produced by my grow team, and they're two different fruits, but not just getting so focused on one that I forget the other, and vice versa. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I think what we're talking about here is primarily the fruit through the team.
Yeah.
Because the fruit within the team, I think, would fit under the grow
Growing together stuff, totally.
It's like, as they're growing, their lives will be bearing more fruit, but we're coming together as a grow team specifically with the intention of bearing fruit through our team into the world.
Totally.
Does that make sense?
That's really true, because it's like the way I bear fruit within the team is that my team starts to bear fruit as Super Kid leaders, because that's how we're growing. We're growing as disciples, which means that's growing. And
otherwise, it's just a life group if we're just building, if we're just bearing fruit.
But as a grow team, my key is that they are bearing fruit as Super Kid leaders, or as whatever department that may be. That's your key, is that they're bearing fruit in that area.
That's good.
That's how my team bears fruit. That's how I bear fruit within the team. Okay, that's actually really good too.
It's helpful.
That's helpful.
Well, the last one, we'll go on to number 3. Can I put this one, Help Me Grow Pathway, out there as an action step for each of us this month? Each of us who are grow team leaders, to actually establish that with, and actually say, let's do that, so that for me that'll be with Brooke and Chris, for Jay and Caitlin that'll be with Dad, and actually establish that, let's say this is how we're going to do it. We'll have our Slack channel, we'll use that, every time I do a post or an event or whatever, we'll do this, but also we'll have our regular, consistent, we're just going to constantly touch base with and refine our wins and refine, is that good?
Yeah. Because I think that consistency,
I think that's going to really help us to
I think we said
have
this,
that cohesion.
I think I said this last month, but I think one of the keys of the consistency is it means it doesn't build up to a point where it's just a bunch of big things, and then it can become a bit like, as if, oh, we're just going to have to deal with all these big things. When it's consistent, you constantly being able to deal with the smaller things, not having to wait and deal with just like any big problems. They can actually be just a bunch of little, not even a lot of problems. They can be little wins, little goals, little adjustments. Instead of having to say, okay, I've gone 6 months without talking to Dad and the Super Kids. Let's have a massive cutback and be, in the last 2 lessons we had a tiny bit of adjustment. Let's make a tiny bit of an adjustment back, sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Little course corrections are much more effective than we've gone way off course.
We're heading west. We're supposed to be heading east.
Last one. Let's just quickly chat about our third goal is being the body. So that means that we are effectively being our body part and effectively working with the other parts of the body.
Yeah.
And this is something I'm just going to skip back a few slides. I've been thinking about. Caitlin and I were chatting about it a little bit with Dad yesterday, and something I'm recognising more, and it's a bit new for me. This is something that we haven't really had systems effectively in place for before. So I would love for us. I really wanted to get to this place tonight, so we could just sort of chat about it quickly. But like looking at the body, if we look at the 4 grow teams as sort of the body of Team Breakthrough, I know in the future there'll be a lot more teams and whatnot. But really, when you look at these 4 teams, none of these teams can operate independent of the others at all. So much of what they do is all tied together. Do you know what I mean? If like, let's use events because that's the easiest example. If the events team is organising an event, that has to filter out into the other 3 teams because the creative team is going to be involved. I can't think of an event we do that the creative team is not involved in some capacity. The communications and storytelling has to be involved because if we're doing an event, we need to communicate that, obviously. And the Super Kids will pretty much always be involved unless it's an event where we're saying we're just not considering any childcare at all.
Or even not just that, like, I'd love to make it that Super Kids is constantly creating next steps for kids. And
for kids,
we do
exactly.
our Brother Jesse meeting. We're not running Super Kids, but we're creating
pathways
for preschoolers and primary school.
Exactly. So there's, does that make sense? It's all going to work together. Communications, there will be some stuff that can be a bit independent, but so much of what you're doing will be tied to, creative team, I need graphics. And our next step we're aiming for is people to come to an event or come to church or something which is tied. Do you know what I mean? So everything has to work really effectively together. To date, we don't really have a system to help us do that effectively. We probably do it because most of us in the room are sort of families.
We're in the room to discuss it.
We can just discuss it, but that's obviously not much good for growing. Even Chris is a close friend, so it's easy for us just to message him and stuff. But does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's
totally.
like we don't have a really. Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
Ultimately, I see these being things that extend outside our Sunday meetings, and we'll have greetings for things that are beyond our building and beyond our city and beyond
bridge outreaches and all sorts of things and
bridge outreaches on the other side of the city and people who run the bridge outreaches for the west side and we can't be just
and people that we as a family don't really know.
We're going to start a Disneyland grow team.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to vote to lead.
Well, there we go. So what could we do? And to finish this, I'd love to just get your thoughts. How could we collaborate effectively with us and our Disneyland grow team where they can't be in the room and they don't live in the house? But how can we do that process effectively? Does that make sense?
That's a good point.
I see that I think that collaboration is an important part of actually my role, and the fact that it hasn't happened today means that that's a part of my role that I haven't been doing well at all, because my role in the strategic thing will be helping. It's helping all those teams effectively work together, so that you're all free to wholeheartedly do your thing, and you're not. Brooke's not like, I've got to try and figure this out with Super Kids, I've got to try and do this, I've got to try and do this. It's like you're free to do your thing. And I've helped you create pathways so that there is systems for that.
So do you mean like if, I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, please.
So with events that, and I'm probably more going back to when I worked for David Smallbone, and that like if Caitlin comes up with an event that she talks to us, or talks to Dad about, and we're going to go with it. Do you mean like that she, like she sits down and works out this is what creative will need to do, this is what communication, this is what this is what they'll all need to, and then sends that to everybody, or does that I don't know, that's what I would like, that's what I used to do for David.
So that's what I reckon we should figure out, something like that. And I think definitely that sort of system where Caitlin's like, let's say we're doing a Jessie Duplantis event or something. Obviously the other teams are going to be super involved, so there needs to be that collaboration. What I would love is a system where Caitlin is totally free to come up with the most, just be totally creative and come up with your heart and desire for what this event feels like, and make the moment, do all the things that your team does, and there's pathways to then communicate that easily with the other teams, who are all then empowered to bring their part. And so, for example, say with the communications, rather than Caitlin having to be like, all right, Jessie Duplantis is coming, so we need to do this, and we need to tell people these details, and we need to send them this 3 weeks before, and then 2 weeks before you need to send them this, and then 1 week before you need to send them this, and you need to make this form or whatever. Caitlin comes to Brooke and says, we're doing this thing with Jessie Duplantis, and my heart is for people to make decisions and to connect and to become followers of Jesus for the first time. And so then Brooke is like, I'm empowered. All right, how am I with the communications going to partner with that? And what does that look like through my team? There can be collaboration. Does that make sense? And so it's like saying, right, this is what we're doing. Now how can we work alongside each other and come alongside in a way that everyone's so totally empowered to be like, I'm going to do my bit with that, not just being told what to do. But is totally across it. Does that make sense?
Totally.
And
so would you be wanting like Caitlin to send something out to everybody at the same time that briefly touched on what her desire is for creative, or like not actually telling them what to do, but you know what I mean, saying you guys are going to be obviously praying and doing whatever God puts on your heart with the music. Brooke, you're going to need to be, and that, so she sends the same document to everybody, but this is not you do A, B, C.
No.
This is empowering you. Is that the type of thing you're meaning?
That's what I'm imagining. And now I'm straight away thinking, even like that's exactly the concept. I've been thinking about this last few days, imagining rather than even a document that we send something like creating a Slack channel. I know you're not a Slacker like the rest of us.
I'm very Slack.
But the advantage of Slack channel is that it's a space where we all, the Grow team leaders, so I'm thinking a channel with like the four leaders and myself probably, and more leaders to come. And so Kate puts in there, this is an event that's happening, I think this is what's going to, and then there can be communication back and forth in that channel and everybody can see it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but so she's not telling them, this is exactly what I want you to do, Brooke, but this is my overall vision. Now you take you fulfill your part of that vision.
Can I just ask a question? Like, I've sort of gone back and forth on it already, 5 times. Is whether do you make like a channel in the Breakthrough Slack workspace where everyone's in it, or would it be better to make this like not actually like necessarily a workspace, but one where you can actually have like individual communications between people? Because what I'd hate for it to become is that this, I'll say as Super Kids, Caitlin's discussing that Jessie Duplantis, maybe 80% of that I'm actually not involved in which, and because of that, the 20% I am involved in gets caught up in there that I don't see it, or I sort of turn off for a couple. That my only worry with that.
I reckon I feel like basically I don't think we've used it enough to really know.
No, that's a good point.
One of the great things with Slack that we haven't used a heap is replying in threads. So basically that means that someone posts something, you can then reply specifically to that comment. Does that make sense? And you have these individual threads in. So it means you don't just have this big conglomerate of
conversations,
a massive conversation. When you read what the Slack creators actually suggest, they say that their research has found you get the best efficiency by keeping it open. Don't separate it too much. Keep it open, because if you over separate and overcomplicate it, people end up just not using it. So they actually say keep it open, keep everyone in there. Don't say, I'll just message Brooke separately. Say I'm just going to put it in the group thing, because they say the more everyone sees it, it actually increases efficiency. That's what their researchers said. we haven't done
No.
enough to really know that yet.
And I think it's one we're using those threads because, like, for instance, in Discord, which is what I use more than Slack, but it's similar. The way they do it, if you reply a thread, it actually just goes to the whole channels thing,
Yeah.
and it just does like a little like, so like in messages when you reply to it's like replying to a specific message in that's what it works like in there. So
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it before where it, like you have the message and then it has like 4 replies underneath and you click it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't used to that sort of idea, but with the idea of threads, and now that I think about it, I think that does actually make
Work well.
sense.
Yeah.
That could work well.
And
And
so that,
particularly even using things like tags and stuff, where you like at such and such, you can do things like
exactly.
I
So-
feel like Slack, I haven't used Slack much, but I'm like, if that works, I think it's a nice, simple way. The only downside is that if you've got something like Jessie's event, I feel like there could be a lot of back and forth between everyone, and so I'm thinking back to like with at times at like St Andrews that Andrew Farmer was a big believer, and he would always just do big messages between everyone, and in the end, no one ever knew what was happening because you
Yeah.
get so confused by
Ye-
all the
Yeah.
all the stuff that you didn't need to see, and then by the time you've read stuff, everything's changed by the bottom of the thread, but now you're so confused from going back and forth.
Yeah.
So that,
Yeah.
but so if there's a
That
way
would
of
be
not,
if I was involved.
yeah, so if there's a way of not having it like that, where it's there's so much going back and forth that it's just sort of a lot of noise, and then you're having to call to say what's the final outcome.
No. Yeah, we have to be wise and strategic how we use it. I would initially, like, the fact that initially we've got these 4 grow teams, these 4 grow team leaders, like, you're all people who are actually smart and not idiots. And
Yeah.
will
My name's not up there.
exactly. But does that mean, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy to give it a crack. And
I think we've
I
got
am
4 people.
CL.
as we
I
go.
think we've actually got.
CL, I'm up
Yes,
there
there you
twice.
go.
There you
I think
go.
we've actually got 4 people that are quite,
switched on with that sort of thing.
and because when you're creating
Yeah.
things to facilitate that stuff, that will adapt with
Definitely
the
seasons,
season. That's going to change with seasons, and that's going to change with
Yeah.
people and stuff. That as things grow, things have to change. And
Totally.
but for the now, I think that's a great way of facilitating it, considering the personnel that is ahead of us and the
Yeah.
foreseeable future.
I'm aware of the time, so I want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I want to finish up in a couple of minutes. But for that sense of we'll go back here. So that sense of collaborating and working together, I think a start is we start with Slack channel, and now we use the example just then of a big event, which is the big one. It's easy to look at them coming from events downwards. I'd love for this to also be something that flows other directions. So, like,
Do you want me to take a Super Kids one that I've been thinking about?
Yep.
I was going to say, I've been thinking about doing like a worship Sunday at Super Kids, like during Super Kids getting someone to come in and like do
Yeah.
a time of worship. That would include me contacting creatives, seeing how that could work with them who
Yeah.
get. That would involve me coordinating with the events because it'd become more of an event with Super Kids. And me coordinating with communications and how I communicate that to the parents, and depending on what the heart of it is, it more of a in Super Kids one, or is it going to be a more of a reach out one, depending on how we communicate that.
That's an excellent example. Yeah. So Jay wants to do. I don't know if that can make a worship Sunday at Super Kids, and so he's then got specific stuff. And so straight away, rather than you having to message a bunch of people individually and figure out what to do and text Chris and say, could someone come and do worship?
Hey Chris, are you okay if I do that? He says, yeah, Caleb's not leaving that Sunday, and then I text you, and then I text
Yeah.
Chris to tell you that you've responded this. It's like, no.
It's like you have a space where you say, "This is my heart. I'd love to do this.
How could creative
How
facilitate
guys, this is what I specifically need." Brooke could straight away, we can communicate that, Kate, and that would work well with this event here. Well, we're already doing this. No, let's
What date would work? How
let's
can I
put it
work
back
that
2
in?
weeks.
Yeah.
Let's do it there. Great, creative is this. Yep. Chris, I'll get on that. We can get
And
a team in there.
That can be good because then it's not just a, hey Chris, can you get someone to do this? It's like, hey, this is the heart behind it. Can you communicate that with your team? See if that reaches someone's heart and how they can like connect with this event and this Sunday. So it's not just let's send in whoever can do it. It's like, oh, this person actually's got a heart for it, so we can organise it amongst that. I think that
Totally.
that
That's a really
sounds
good example.
example.
Okay, do you have any thoughts? I know it's harder for you to jump in.
Sorry, I just I didn't know when others were speaking, so I didn't want to jump.
No,
on
go
top.
for it.
I think that's really good. I think like the only one of the things that I can just foresee that I'm not sure exactly how it works yet. I know we mentioned this the other day. Is say that example of like, it's going to the Super Kids to do a special Sunday. It's like, which is great. That's a great idea. but it's like, who is kind of overseeing when and what we do. So I'm like, oh, Super Kids June Special Sunday, that kind of fits in underneath the event and their meetings, but it's also across because it's Super June and so like it's across. So it's like, oh, I'm like, oh, well, all the Sunday meetings are actually already planned out for these things, you know. But then suddenly, if it's put in the Slack, oh, we should do this, and then, oh yeah, that's great, we're doing this, and then it's like, oh, where that all fits in, and then and I understand what you're saying about not going like events downward. It can be a natural thing, but like how, but it's like how it all, how a collaboration works together, where it's not like everyone's coming up with like amazing ideas, but how they all filter into each other's departments, and like who I don't want to in any way overstep onto somebody else's role or things like that. Do you know what I mean?
Totally, and part of that I think we'll learn as we go. When I was saying not events down, I was saying like not only events down. Like I want other ideas. I think naturally a majority of this will probably be events down, especially initially. But obviously we want to empower, and I know that's what you're saying as well. But if I said not events down before, I meant not only events down.
I didn't. I meant like I thought we said yesterday or the other day, whatever day it was. But how it all works in the sense of everyone getting great ideas, but which ones can we run with, and which ones do we do, and who gives that sort of tick of yes, and I think definitely putting everything in the Slack channel for sure, but then there might be ones that I might go to somebody. I don't know if I want to do I go to Chris first and have a conversation with him, as because that would really fall under his area and see he's good, and then put it in the Slack channel for everyone to be like, hey, this is, you know.
And you can show difference in that to recognise, I should chat to Chris before I put this in the whole thing.
We're planning on doing a voice. Let's organise a date first with Chris, and then we can put it or something like that. And
so I'm happy for us to work through those. I think they're really valid questions, and you're saying what do we like? Who has the final say? Like, what if Jay comes and says, I want to do a Super Kids Worship Sunday?
Oh, in that case, I like the finals.
And bad example, if Jay's involved, he has the contact. And Kate says, oh no, but our Sundays are all planned. And so it's like both have an idea. It's like both are doing your thing, but then when they come to connect together, they don't fit. What I would love to try, and I'm not saying this in any sense because I'm not trying to promote myself in any way, or make myself the grand schwa. Obviously, firstly, they would all, you run them through your Help Me Grow channel. So both of you and Jay go through, we'll be doing it through Dad, and Dad would be like, yeah, this is a good idea, let's go with that. But then, and so it's succeeded in that one. The problem is when it's come to the working across teams strategically, it's like, there's a blockage, not because it's a bad idea, but because it doesn't work with something that's already planned or whatever. In that case, I would see that as, for me in this role, in the strategic role, to say, well, let's make a plan for how this works together. Because I need to be the one who's most across all the other teams and what they're all thinking. Does that make sense? Not in the sense that I'm sitting there in my seat of authority saying yes, yes, no, no, no. I think anything that comes through these channels will be a yes, and there'll be a collaborative work together. But then in terms of, I will try and say, all right, how can we strategically work together to make this happen? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Chances are, if it's got to that, it's not going to be a yes, no, yes, no. If it's got through those channels, it's going to be a yes, or maybe a not quite now.
Yeah, it's going to be, okay, that's a great idea, but we've already planned this, let's hold it off. Or that actually works really well with something else that's happening. Can we work together and shift an event and find a way to make it work? Or, does that make sense?
Or we hold off on that because that will work really well with this thing we're doing in a few months or something like that.
Yeah. Would you guys feel comfortable if I actually take that and make that part of my role? Is that in those cases when people present ideas, I'm not sitting in the seat of authority, picking and choosing what Breakthrough does and doesn't, but I will be sitting across the teams because I'm not any of these one people. I'm the one who's trying to help them all work together. And so there will be maybe times where I'm like, that's great, but let's not do that right now because there's other stuff that you just don't know about because of that. Does that sound good? Does that sound
In
alright?
particular, probably.
Yeah.
What do you think, Caitlin?
Yeah, that sounds good for sure.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I'm genuinely
Yeah.
asking. I'm not like I'm. That's the way I'm foreseeing that it could work.
Yeah.
Can I just?
Sorry, the cut in now.
Oh
Sorry.
no, that's alright. No stress. So can I just throw one final thought and then I want to finish off because it's 9 o'clock.
And also to say that I think like with Slack, it'll be a bit of trial by error.
Yeah,
at this point.
let's give it a crack and let's give it a red hot crack and see what happens. And I'm happy to give that a try.
For sure.
The if I can just push one other thought, we've talked about a Slack channel there. I won't go into it in great detail for the sake of time, because I know Dad's already spoken to Caitlin and Brooke about this concept of a soft focus. The idea of being a soft focus is that to help us have this cohesion and work together as the body, we have these like seasonal focuses at Breakthrough. So we'll say like for 3 months we're going to focus on a certain element of discipling, and so we say for 3 months we're going to focus on disciples help other disciples grow. Disciples love each other, they disciple together, which is what Dad's been preaching on. Grow team leaders, if we that would actually give you direction and focus. So rather than just being like bear fruit, grow, it's like, all right, here's a focus to grow towards. So Brooke could have a communication strategy that's all about helping people towards steps of growing together. Caitlin has events, Jay has super kid stuff, Chris has creative stuff, whatever. What I would love to propose is that to do this collaboration, when we're going to have a new soft focus, we actually have a one-off meeting where we get all the Grow team leaders in the room and we come and discuss the ideas you've got for your team. Now this is not like I talked yesterday, whenever it was with Caitlin, this is not you coming to get all the other leaders to give it a tick and get buy-in, but in that sense of collaboration where, example, Caitlin comes in and say, we're talking about growing together, and so I've got a heart that we're going to do 4 Sundays in a row with social events afterwards, or we're going to do 4 Sundays in a row where we only do half an hour of worship and everyone goes and splits into small groups and prays for each other or whatever. And so then we like, oh, that sounds great. All right, and Jay's like, super kids could do this, and Brooke's like, communications, we could do this, and Chris like, the creative team could do this, and we could work towards this, and we could do acoustic worship in the foyer. Do you know what I mean? We could work towards all this stuff. So we actually have every say 3 or 4 months, however long this season is, we have one solid sit down where we have a bit of a collaborative brainstorm. Everyone has to come with their ideas ready, throw it all as it is, like say, yep, that sounds good, that sounds great. My job in that meeting is to do this role and to help, all right, that's great, how can we work all this together so that we don't just get each department has 5 billion ideas but we actually do that. I think that would be really important, and then once we've had that meeting, then we have the Slack channel to continue all that discussion. Do you know what I mean? So if you have like a big event, if you have something significant, we have that initial chance to actually sit in the room and chat together, and then beyond that we can use Slack.
And then because you can have like small things, like with super kids, I could say, hey, we're going to do a Sunday where we're talking about pirates, and afterwards we're going to do a pirate treasure hunt afterwards. But overall, those things can come up in Slack, or if they come up beforehand in that meeting, that's great as well. But those things, but in terms of saying, hey, we're going to we're going to do something crazy different with super kids for a month, that probably might come up in one of those.
Exactly. How would you all feel with that?
Would that be, I'm guessing, one of the Wednesday, like the Grow team leaders?
I don't think we do it as a Grow team leadership because that was one of my questions, was when and how we could do that. I don't think it fits in this slot because it's well, a couple of reasons. Obviously it's only half the group, but the life group leaders could do something separate. But also because I think these touch points are valuable for us to really grow in the skill of leadership. We'd effectively, because these are going to become every 2 months, we'd effectively be taking half of these to just do planning meetings. Does that make sense? So unless we do that is one option. It just means we really cut back just our opportunity to just say we're going to just grow as leaders and try and work through stuff where and I don't want to just give into the temptation to just say, oh, we just got to do the things so we don't do
Yeah.
growth.
Mm.
But it means that it would have to be like whether it's every 3 or 4 months, it would have to be like a separate time.
Mm.
Like one idea I had, you know, is you say every 4 months or something, we do like a Saturday breakfast or something. We do like 9 till 12 or something. We have like a special, and we do that, you know, 2 or 3 times a year. So it's not like a regular thing.
Yeah.
But I would love thoughts. That's just my thoughts.
My first thought was kind of something like this, like, I think, like, I see such great value in doing the things that are really organised and they're scheduled and stuff, like how we do
Yeah.
routines and life groups. But something like this, I think it will be a bit more flowy. It will be a bit more. It won't, like, I think doing something like that that's a bit outside of a regular time slot, that can work because, like, if
Because
it
it's
has,
not part of our
it's not
weekly rhythm.
it's not a routine, or like, it's not routine, that's the wrong word, but you know
No,
what I
no,
mean.
yeah.
It's like because maybe we find that one soft focus, like God's speaking, so suddenly it goes 5 months or it goes 6 months, and it changes a little bit, sort of thing, depending on what sort of is happening.
Yeah, we're gonna have to learn how that works. If the Holy Spirit's
If the
really
Holy
on it,
Spirit
do we just
suddenly
stay with
do we
it?
just
or
stay
do-
with it,
Yeah.
or maybe another focus really comes from a meeting, like that, like the miracles one or something. It's something like
Yeah.
that. So suddenly we want to adapt that. So suddenly it's every that one's only 2 months. Like, because of that sort of part of it, I think it's okay if it's like
Yep.
a Saturday morning, because then it can be it's got a bit longer, so suddenly we make it a Saturday afternoon, once
Yeah.
through a lunch, or we make it a dinner on Saturday night, or whatever.
Totally.
Because of that, I do think doing something like a Saturday morning works, because we can adapt
It's
it.
a sort of,
It's
yeah.
going to be an adapting one, because it will be a lot more flowing than a regular meeting or
Yep.
a touch point. I should
I
say.
think Caitlin was started saying something before too.
Sorry, no, I hadn't.
Oh, sorry.
I was wondering, when you said before, did you say growth team leadership is going to be every 2 months?
Yes. Oh, sorry. I think you were at the meeting where we talked about that last month. It was at the creative grow team. Sorry, but I think. So what we were looking at was actually switching this to being every 2 months, so that the grow teams themselves get a chance to build a bit more momentum. Because at the moment they're just doing it once a month. It's really hard to build a lot of momentum with doing stuff and bearing fruit together, so that they can sort of get a bit of a rhythm. They can do three touch points across the 2 months, and then they have a fortnight off while we do this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's sort of what, and especially if we can establish this stuff well, then we can sort of be in the groove of that, and then we can just come together every couple of months, just really to grow and work through a different leadership concept. That would be my heart. And Mum, I value your input. I know, like if we did something like that, say we're gonna have for a soft focus, you know, for every 3 or 4 months, we did like a Saturday morning breakfast or something with the grow team leaders. Do you think that would be?
Yeah, like I think, and I said obviously it depends on everybody's different schedules, but like you're looking there at obviously Chris, Caitlin, Jay, yourself, Kyra, probably Dan, whatever. Yeah, I think so, and like my suggestion would be I'd just like wait till the next one, when you want to have one, but
And
a
just
few
give it
weeks
back.
in advance, and maybe just see where everybody's placed time wise.
Yeah.
You know?
If
Something fun over breakfast or something like that, or
I think that's
brunch,
like a
or
really good idea.
even
Breakfast really.
even going out for coffee or something. Like sometimes it actually makes it.
Yeah,
fun
I
thing.
thought you could even it's the sort of thing, because it's very brainstorming. You could actually go somewhere.
Yeah.
I thought you could go somewhere like Listerfield Lake or something, somewhere. Do you know what I
You
mean?
could go down to
go
Railway
somewhere.
Express, so.
Well, yeah. If that wasn't so far, that would be perfect. We could go down and get a nice coffee on the beach somewhere.
Yeah,
And,
I said something.
and
I
do
think
something like
you
that,
can
just
make it a
totally-
special event like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be just a.
I mean, that works really. Like,
Sorry,
that
just
I actually really
No.
like.
Well, we would everyone be keen for that?
Yeah.
If we'd actually love to launch the first soft focus, but we want to give quality time to do it. If we suggested that, say, we do like our first Saturday morning all in, sort of later in March, I think the 25th for all three. No, like I haven't got a date in my head at all. We could quickly look
The
one out.
19th and the 26th are both Saturdays from memory.
My only
the
thought would be that
26th is we've got the Silver Pontiac concert.
My only thing would be, and I said this the other day to Dad, was that I would love just knowing the way I think. I'm very good at coming up with ideas, but often I'm far better if I've got a few weeks to actually mull over ideas.
Yeah.
Whereas, so that's why even like something like tonight when it's the ideas, I'm like, my mind just goes
No, that's
blank. So I feel like I would be a big believer in that. I would love to actually come prepared, but I would say that the more time I have beforehand, because
Yep.
often once it gets there, that if I haven't
Definitely.
got something pre-prepared, often my mind will be quite blank then in the meeting.
I definitely would like this to be something where everyone, and we'll have a rhythm where we announce this as the soft focus, give you plenty of time to think about it. Everyone comes together, collaborates, we lock in this what we're doing. Then there's still plenty of time to action it, and then the soft focus
Exactly,
begins.
yeah.
So we should probably be usually announcing the soft focus. I don't know. Do you reckon, Kate, like maybe a couple of months before, or actually maybe even more? But at least we should at least be beginning that process months in advance.
Could you look potentially at the 2nd of April, which is the first Saturday of April?
Yeah, I think
It was the day before. I want to believe you, but
That's it. Collingwood's playing Geelong.
Oh.
Left the G's. No.
That's where we do the
Half time.
Yeah.
You
No,
could go to the Collingwood Football Club for coffee.
Yeah, I would.
that does actually sound like a good option. Is something around that time and giving that.
What, Caitlin, because I know we started this conversation the other day, if we had that collaborative meeting on the 2nd of April, and then we plan to actually implement it, say, from late April or May, how would that sit with you with events? Would that be like a good...
So do you mean the soft focus going
Sorry,
live?
keeps freezing. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
meeting April and like soft focus going
Yeah,
out like a month later.
Yeah, like I think that's good. Just like it just means because like ideally I would be like planning out the year's events.
Yeah.
So I would just like Dad said, like I can still try to at least run with some things, just as much as I can, and start planning things as much as I can, because otherwise it would just mean that
With
we
the,
can't sort of do anything until later on.
I think with Dad was still happy. I
But
think.
I think I keep losing you. I can't hear you guys very well.
Can you hear me, darling?
Now it's just very broken.
Okay. I was just saying, I think Dad's still really happy with us going ahead with planning the ladies' meeting. Which was the first thing that you had, that we had talked about doing.
Yeah, so that's good. And like, I can look at it with Dad.
Yeah.
It just means, like, I think that's good. It'll just be like, I'll try as much as I can to still plan for events ahead of time, and I'll still need to plan Easter and April meetings and things.
Yeah.
But it would just like need to work outside of this sort of process a little bit, I guess, for those ones. And also just sort of look, like I'd already sort of before all this had like a plan of sort of things ahead in the year, so I can have things tentatively down until
Yeah, well, really, these are soft focuses, so it just means that there's a constant theme. Do you know what I mean? It's not like this is this is exactly what we're doing sort of thing. It's like this is the general sort of theme of what we're thinking in what we're doing. I would be very happy for us to chat separate to this about then looking at the following soft focuses and actually plan out the soft focuses for the year. But it's how much you want to do, how much you want to lock those in, and how much you want to say, you know what, let's just, if we could have something that ran from May, June, July, if we could nail that, that would be a cool start. But yeah, like I don't know, it's up to you. Like I said, I really want with what I'm doing, working between the teams to make it so that everyone is really empowered to own it and run with it. So do you feel like for you to own it and run with that, you would need to know soft focuses through the whole year? Is that sort of your thinking?
I'm happy with whatever. I think for me, obviously, like the more I can ahead in terms of like, it means we can do bigger things, and it means I can also like have a look at a whole calendar year and sort of plan things out, spaced out within a year, and sort of like plan big things and events throughout.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean like we have to have everything planned out, and it can mean I can still have events planned, and when we come to those months, it just depends what our soft focus is underneath those events. It doesn't mean I can't not do those in that sense.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to work with however works best with the team and feel it out a bit with everyone.
Well, I would be really happy, and I would better finish in a sec. I would be really happy for us to actually chat, and if you can, like, if you're happy to continue this with that, like, say we've set the first soft focus, let's look at the following ones and actually set a bit of a, till December. We don't need to announce that widely and make that cut and dried, but I'm happy for that to be something that's like a, so you can be thinking towards that because you are in a space where you want to be working towards stuff a long way in advance. I'm really happy with that. I think that would be really good, and I think that would be strategic and effective, and maybe even with the whole team where our brainstorming meetings are further in advance. But there's sort of one of those things where we've got to start somewhere and have a brainstorming meeting towards our first soft focus.
Can I just throw in one more thing? I would find it, like, especially for my department, but I'd find it really beneficial if I could have a few touch points with my team between that brainstorming session to when it goes live, so that it can actually be touch point with the different, like with Maddie and whoever else who's actually helped me put the content together.
Yeah.
So if you do it so that there's a few times where you can actually utilize the touch points for what we're putting together.
Yep, that sounds excellent. So one of the challenges is, and this is not about, is that, like, obviously all this, we're saying the more time we've got in the lead up, the better, which is excellent. We're still in a space where we don't have, like, once we have it running, that's fine, because we have a soft focus which is in action, and we're planning the next one. At the moment we don't have one, so we're just planning the first one. And so I'm actually happy. We could say, we don't start the first one until June or whatever, but it means that that's not halfway through the year before we're actually running around something. Whether we say the first one is going to be a bit of a, we'll start it a bit quicker, so that we can get the ball rolling, and then we will.
And then we'll have the next meeting. Maybe when normally we'll go 4 months between those planning meetings, which is in the 3 or 4 months depending on how long the soft focus is. Maybe the first one's actually only a month and a half or 2 months, because we're sort of extending those gaps. We're extending those times between over the first couple of meetings. Everyone's getting, each one's getting a bit further back or something like that, potentially.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we just need to figure that out, basically. Let's.
Do we keep the 2nd of April as a
let's start by saying what if we go with the 2nd of April?
Laneway Expresso.
Just to do a Saturday morning, like collaborative. These are is everyone good with that?
That works with me.
All right. Our soft focus is this concept of discipling together. I think you're standing in front of the camera there, so you get a good view of your right shoulder. Our soft focus will be discipling together. So the concept that disciples connect with other disciples, help other disciples grow, and together do discipling work, which fits really well with doing double down, and obviously the life group launch and that sort of thing. We will chat more, and in that, can we make that a point to chat at our first Help Me Grow thing with Brooke and Chris, and then Caitlin and Jay, you can chat with Dad. Is that all good?
Yep.
So our takeaways from this, start thinking about that. 2nd of April, we'll look at that. And
set up Help Me Grows.
Set up your Help Me Grows as a regular, consistent, because then these are things we need to be always just constantly chatting through and growing.
Too easy.
Good team.
Sounds good.
Thank you for that. Why don't you pray for us? To close this out?
Okay, Father, we thank you, Lord, for we're here, Lord, in unity, that we want to Breakthrough Christian Church to fulfill the destiny that it was born for. We want the calling on the church to be fulfilled. I thank you, Lord, for the faithful people who are serving, Lord, who are here tonight because they love the church, they know their part in the body, and they're wanting to see the church advance. And now, Lord, I'm asking, Father, that, Lord, we will see such a multiplication of people. I thank you that you are bringing in people, Lord, not only the unsaved, but you're bringing in people who are already saved and have been called to serve in Breakthrough and to be part of, Lord, our team. And I thank you that, Father, you are bringing them in from the north, the south, the east and the west. I thank you they're coming locally and they're coming from overseas. Lord, people coming to serve in the house, Father, that, Lord, we can see your purposes, Lord, and your calling on our church fulfilled. I thank you for your blessing upon everybody here tonight, Lord. I thank you that, Father, I bless Caleb for his preparation. I bless Peter, Father, as he's seeking you for the direction. I bless every one of the Grow Team leaders, the life group leaders, Lord, that have given up their night. And I thank you, Father God, that, Lord, Father, you will look down and you will smile, Lord, when you hear our conversations, when you see what we're doing, that we will bring joy to your heart, and that, Father, we will have fun on the journey, Lord,
Yeah.
in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. That's good. Thank you, team.
Amen.
Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Adios, Chris.
See you, Caitlin.
See you, Kate.
See